It's only entertainment.
Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, capital markets analyst. And today we're going to be interviewing Jeffrey Garber, founder, CEO of Yellow Dream Farms. Jeffrey, thanks for being with us at the Talking Hedge.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So what is Yellow Dream Farms? Where are you at? What is it?
So Yellow Dream Farm is a family-owned 30,000 square foot cultivation facility based in Adelante, California. It's about an hour and a half north of Los Angeles. And Yellow Dream's farm model is to grow boutique quality cannabis at scale using vertical farming and LED technology. And we are growing, boutique quality cannabis at scale. And we're trying to kind of break the barrier and the stigma that, boutique quality and craft cannabis can't be grown in commercial scale.
It's funny because I was just thinking that yesterday. I was just thinking I'm not sure that it can be done. So that'll be an interesting conversation to dive into. I was in Vegas just a couple of weeks ago and I got to stop by around 8 stores. I was trying to go into 10, but I ran out of time. And I noticed I got to Cookie Store, kind of excited to try some of Berner's genetics that I've heard so much about. And yet this $55 blunt was nothing I would ever pay more than $15 here in Seattle for. I pay, it's $18 and then I get a discount at the store. And I buy, it's the 3.5 grams, not the 2 grams I bought from Cookie. Right. So kind of a trash experience. I went to the 20 stores on 420. Was that just 2 days ago? In Seattle, I do that the 6th year in a row and kind of avoided the whole cookie store there too. So there's a lot of noise about the genetics coming out of cookies and these international expansions coming out of California and this global transition of big cannabis and Berner's whole push of where we've got, the genetics and the consistency. And yet I didn't see it. So I kind of was under the impression that was something that was really important to him. And yet when it came down to it, wasn't quite there. So do you have any opinions about that big brand coming from, your state going international, claiming the same thing, but not really following through?
Listen, I'll never talk badly on Berner and cookies. They're some of the biggest influences to me personally in the game. But I'm really happy you touched on the price point of their products, and something that I kind of pride myself and my brand on is that I'm really looking to give access to people like yourself and other, cannabis connoisseurs who really love a high-end product, but they don't want to go into a dispensary and drop 50, 80, $90 on an eighth every time they go in. It's unaffordable and it's unsustainable. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really cost, that much at the end. And it always falls, when there's so many middlemen in between, when you're contracting out grows and when you're sourcing genetics and when you're, not distributing for yourself. So there's really just so many different, touch points there that really make it unaffordable to the consumer, as opposed to, growing it yourself and, not licensing out your name to a lot of other cultivators. So, we pride ourselves on really just getting an affordable quality product to the market and keeping it at a sustainable cost. And, hopefully people, value the value of the brand by, smoking an $80 eighth and then smoking a $40 to $50 eighth of GoodGood, and then kind of matching up the potency, matching up the terpene profiles, matching up the actual effect that you get, putting statistics aside, how does this product make you feel? What kind of high are you getting from it? Is it a heady? Is it body high? Is it something that you can smoke again and feel like this is something consistent for you? So that's really kind of where my mission comes in, is to just bring an affordable product to market. And that's kind of why all of my sustainability aspects of Yellow Dream Farm really fall into play. Is, we're LED growing vertical. We have a 1,000 light facility. Our sustainable and eco-friendly practices also not only give back to the environment, but they keep our COGS down. And when you keep your COGS down, and as we all know, California's marketplace is incredibly volatile. People aren't getting these 2,500, 3,000 pounds anymore. The wholesale market is pretty much in the dump. It's oversaturated with a lot of different brands coming to market because of the oversupply of flower in the market. So it's really just become a very, very competitive edge that you need to have. And for me, my competitive edge was to always try to keep my costs down. And that's why I chose to go the route of growing vertical. And, it's been pretty successful. Obviously, there's a lot more hiccups down the way and a lot more learning experiences because it's a newfound style of growing. And it's something that we're very proud that we jumped into.
What are the wholesale prices right now, Jeffrey? You mentioned that they're kind of coming down. Where are they at now?
Right now, it's mid-April, May, usually, the outdoor crops start drying out by now. That's obviously a big aspect of why the market is being saturated. A lot of depths, a lot of outdoor humble grown farms, come in, and that kind of drives the price down. So usually there's always kind of a market trend that happens in the industry where, the price always dips, during Croptober when, all of the northern product starts coming down. So, but, even still then, we've seen prices go as low as, 800 to 1200 in the indoor market and, 3, 4, 500, in the outdoor light den market. And, when your cost to produce is, between 550 and 800 a pound, there's no profit margin. And then you have $162 tax, on a pound that's cost you $600 to produce. That's an insane number. And now you have over license, oversupply, and not enough retail outlets in the state of California to even sustain the amount of product that's going into the marketplace. And now, you have farmers who are scrambling, they're dumping product just to get rid of it. They still have the tax liability on their books. So it's just, it's incredibly competitive and it's just, becoming unsustainable for a lot of farmers. And that's why you see a lot of California natives, California farmers, going to states like Florida and more business-friendly environments where they're going to get incentives to come to the state, where they're not going to have power restrictions. You can barely get licensed and powered, even if they'll issue a license. And then all of a sudden you find out, Edison's not going to give you power for 2 years. Now you have farmers paying crazy rent. They're paying licensing fees, they're paying renewal fees, and they can't even grow a pound yet. So, it's just, there's a ton of hiccups in, different types of, legislation that's kind of hurting the California market, I would say. There's been an outcry of, lowering taxes. Somehow it was raised $10 a pound this year. So no one's really understanding where the correlation comes. And we're just, once again, uphill battle constantly in the cannabis industry. And it doesn't seem to be getting any easier for anybody.
Yeah, I mean, between fires and robberies and taxes and competition and regulators and everything else, it's a really fun environment, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I'm curious how you're able to remain a going concern in that environment. So vertical integrated agriculture, you're growing straight up, right? Is that what you mean?
Correct.
You're not just vertically integrated as a producer, processor, retailer, but you have literally vertical grow. How is that helping you reduce your COGS?
So maximizing your square footage is the main aspect of it. So, an average room that isn't double stacked, let's say ours has 162 lights each room of our 7 flower rooms. An average room would be 80 lights for that same 2,000 square feet. So now I have 162 lights. And, with now you have so many breakthroughs with LED tech, only in the last 3 years with LED technology really being utilized in large scale cultivation, basically because of the spectrum. And now also you have a lot of different automation systems. You have a lot of different irrigation systems. You have environmental control systems that really help you hone in on the microclimates, which is a big aspect. So a lot I think has to do with just, the breakthroughs in technology, the amount of funding that a lot of these big companies are getting from, outside agricultural communities who are coming in and investing into the cannabis industry because they see how lucrative it is. So I think there's a lot of, different software and techs that, we have partnered with, like GrowLink, they do a fantastic job with, fully automation in our facility. This obviously helps with our costs.
Expand on that.
Through GrowLink.
I'd really like to know about the automation and what you're using. I went to Planet 13 in Vegas. They have, just arms and stuff and this huge long line of of equipment, and it's not fully automated, but it's a lot of expense. So I'm wondering what you've incorporated to help reduce your cost of goods sold by implementing automation and anything else that you're doing that might be unique or early on to the game for cannabis. What are you doing specifically for automation?
So from automation, from our feeding systems to our batch tanks to our full irrigation room is fully automated. None of my fertigation techs have to fill a batch tank. They're just checking the lines, they're checking pH, checking EC, all through a computer or an app system. And then, all of our tanks are being refilled automatically. Obviously, the irrigation, we're not hand feeding anything when you have, 3,000 plants on average per room. And then you have your environmental control where you're really setting and dialing in parameters. So you can really focus in on the microclimates in the vertical system, because obviously when you have ceiling heights of 20 feet as opposed to 10 feet, your dry back on the top tier versus the bottom tier is a little heavier.
But you can't see that top tier either. So are you utilizing cameras and AI, or do you know when that technology will be available? So if you see a leaf,
we have walking platforms. So,
okay, so you can't see it.
Yeah,
but do you happen to have a time frame of when you might see a technology similar to a camera detecting whether or not it's environmental factors or something like the soil composition or whatever, and why that leaf might be changing color or otherwise?
So GrowLink provides all of that as is. It's something that's currently being utilized. There's several companies that do it. So we have media sensors plugged directly into our soil or our hydro cube, our Rockwell cubes. And this tells you the water content, the water temperature, the EC, and then you can always, check the runoff to match that up. So our media sensors actually connect back to our solenoids, and the solenoid is what opens and closes the valves in order to feed the plants. So we can actually manage our dry back. When any plant falls below 25% dry back, we can automatically sensor our solenoid to open up without any of my employees having to micromanage and sit and live on the app and look and see, hey, this plant's drying back, boom, right away. The computer knows, it triggers the fertigation room, and then all of a sudden you're feeding, as opposed to people going into a room, plugging sensors into every one of the plants, checking it. Okay, dry back is at appropriate height. Boom, click the button to feed. So we've created this automation where you really set the parameters, you dial in the plans, what EC works well for it, what dry back works well for it. And then, we kind of just continue dialing that aspect to kind of get that perfect dry back. And, that allows us to really, get that quality of flower that, a lot of people are utilizing. And this is all through a method called crop steering. Crop steering is, what most people are utilizing right now to really boost yields and boost quality. And this is a proven method that, most cultivators who are, ahead of the time right now that are really utilizing this type of technology.
How much does medium play into creating top shelf, like where you really get that funk and the terpenes really fall through? Is it a matter of soil or hydroponics, aeroponics? Is it the flush that really creates that smell and taste and distinguishable, discerning palate for those that want something good? What is it? Explain to me a little bit about kind of what creates top shelf.
When it comes to your media, a lot of people say soil is what brings out the biggest terpene profiles from it. I've ran in this specific facility, both Rockwell and soil, and played around with it, in terms of being more efficient. Rockwell has always been the easier route. But, soil, it's such a difficult question because it's so personal preference. Not only to your growing style and your growing techniques, soil is a little more resilient as opposed to hydro or Rockwell. So it's just really how you grew up and what style of growing, I think is what you've worked around and perfected. And, everyone's got a personal preference, at the end of the day. It's just like telling me, what coffee beans are stronger. It could be from Peru or it could be from, Seattle. So I think it's very personal preference based on, but I think industry, a lot of people say soil is definitely where you get the most terpene profiles from.
Well, let me ask you a different way. In Seattle on Third Avenue by the courthouse, there's always a group of folks, maybe different people, whatever, but they always have like the best smelling bud in the whole city. Like if you want to know what really good Seattle weed smells like, go to Third Avenue at the bus stop right across from the courthouse. Consistently, like the best smelling. I always want to go up and just like sesh with them because I want to know what they're smoking and it smells delicious. When I ask people, how is it that those folks always have what smells like the best weed in the entire state? The response is, well, it's probably craft grow. And that goes in opposition to what you're saying is that you can kind of create that on a larger scale. What people are telling me is, nah, it smells that good because it's got to be small farms. How do you get that experience where you have that smell and the, assuming that there's flavor behind it, how do you get that on a large scale?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is genetic based, but also the curing process is a huge aspect of it. A lot of farmers are rushing product out the door to meet deadlines, to get the product in the hands of the consumer. And, sometimes it's just, the slow process is the winning process in my experience. And sometimes, the way we cure and the way we trim and just taking that extra day for the product to really sit and kind of marinate, I think is a huge aspect of my curing process. And I think it's just such a shame that after 90 days of hard work, to kind of skip the last step of it, of, the real curing process of really letting the product sit, whether it's in a cure tube or a barrel or in a bag where you're burping it. And, it's just something that I pride myself on. I think having a strong nose is something that is really appealing to most consumers, and making sure that the product is still stays fresh. So it's a very fine line, honestly, to get it to cure, but without it drying out too quick and, getting all that moisture loss.
Is there a conspiracy that people are I don't know what the process is called, but keefing it, like getting some of the trichomes and Kief off of it in order to sell that as another product, and then that would maybe diminish the smell and flavor and attributes?
I think so. I mean, like I said, California is very adamant at very high THC testing. I don't know why the consumers are going crazy on very high THC testing product, as opposed to aesthetics or quality or nose or effect. As a consumer, high THC testing is not like something that I ever look for. I'm more of, a genetic guy. I'm more of an aesthetic guy. I'm more of a flavor profile guy, and as well as what kind of effect, you can get on it. I'm an active user. So for me, I don't like to get blitzed. I like to just, get that little maintenance high going and really be productive. But it's just, I don't know. It's very complicated. I think cannabis consumers are probably one of the hardest consumers to understand, and their consumer behavior is like very tough to really pinpoint. I think they just love authenticity, and they love, a real product and someone that's going to give you that consistent product day in and day out. And I think that's really important.
A lot of people are asking for a highest THC at the lowest price point, and they don't understand how terpenes are the actual direction there. So I think the majority of people everywhere are in the same boat. But talking about consistency, Blue Dream is interesting because that was a strain that everybody really liked because of that kind of, early on that had a euphoric, energetic, uplifting experience. And now that phenotype, I even saw an indica Blue Dream. So people are just taking it and crossing it and changing it. I'm curious, like when you're talking about consistency and developing something that people can go after time and time again, how do you do that? Because the F1, like once you start with that, isn't it all downhill from there? I mean, if somebody wants like a Acapulco Gold or White Widow or some old school, how do you keep that consistent when you call it medicine, or when you want the same thing over, and I want my Coca-Cola, I don't drink Coca-Cola, but if you want your same thing over and over again, how do you do that?
It's very tough, especially in the cannabis industry, because growers run after run. You can have the same strain, same lineage, same genetic, and it just, from one room to another room, it looks completely different. And the way you do that is just really dialing in your feeding and dialing in your environment, and knowing that like perfect point where you get that perfect run and where the product looks consistently the same. And it takes just, a lot of data. It just run after run to analyze this information, to how to get that whole room to look consistently with the same testing, same terpene profile, same cure. At the end of the day, you're dealing with a live plant, you're dealing with a live environment. Accidents happen, hiccups happen, dehues go out, ACs go out, lines get clogged. So there's always something that you're dealing with, and it's just being able to pivot on the dime. And preventative maintenance, I think, is a huge aspect of cannabis, and being being in cultivation is just knowing at any point something can happen. So how do you pivot? How do you counteract? And just continue rolling with the punches, as a lot of people say.
Mm-hmm. In terms of reducing your cost of goods sold and keeping up with, premium cannabis, how important is it to have distribution? There's a lot of athletes coming out with brands, whether it's CBD or THC, and it doesn't really seem to matter. Willie Nelson had to leave Washington State. Nobody cares. And I don't think people care about Burner either. They care about cookies. That's my opinion. How important is it though for distribution? Because you can have your athletic brand, and your spokesperson, but if there's not a solid distribution, you're not really going to get any sales. In the fifth largest economy in the world, being California, how important is it for you to have a solid distribution channel?
So we self-distribute all our products internally. We have our own sales team, so we don't use any third-party distributions. But distribution is obviously one of the most important aspects of it. If people don't know your product, if people can't get access to your product, what good is it as having a top tier, product? Mm-hmm. So distribution is everything, sales and marketing. And I think, one of the most important aspects is having your cultivation team and your sales team and your operational team all kind of come in and understand where the market is going, understand the trends in the industry, so we can consistently not skip a step. Because this industry is just like fashion. What's hot today isn't going to be hot tomorrow, and you always kind of have to continue working with what trends are hot. Whether it's OGs or gelatos or Blue Dreams or now sativas. So there's just so many different trends in the marketplace that you really need to stay ahead of, and your sales team needs to really coordinate that with your cultivation team, making sure you're putting the right products out into the market and putting those products out in the right time of year. Like I said, there's trends in every industry, and cannabis is no different. What people want to smoke during the summer isn't exactly what they want to smoke during the winter. And when you can understand those trends and provide products to your retailers around that, then all of a sudden people kind of have a triggering, feeling, it's summertime, let me go get some of this GoodGood, or, wintertime, I'm staying home, let me get some of this kind of GoodGood. And I think these kind of interactions with the products, allows people to really gain that kind of brand loyalty where they're, connecting GoodGood with a part of their life.
Mm-hmm. What are some other trends coming out of California? Because we typically see California leading the trends. It hits, sure, Denver maybe 6 months later, and a few months after that, it hits the Northwest here. So you guys are always leading the trends. What are you kind of seeing right now as trend setting?
From a strains, or
just anything in the industry, anything in general?
I think just really exotic looking flower, something new, something fresh, something with, purple aspects to it. Anything with a purple color really usually sells well. Mm. And I think just getting something that's not oversaturated in the market, and creating a trend behind it, I think with the right marketing, Burner does it himself, better than anyone out there. Whatever he puts in the market, people buy and people love. Mm. And it's usually of the highest quality flower, but he creates a really good marketing campaign behind it. And he's always putting new products in the market, and he's always, collaborating with, some of the best breeders in the country. And, people now understand that, it's a very competitive edge, and good flower doesn't sell itself anymore. You really have to have, like you mentioned, whether it's a celebrity or, just a good marketing team and a good sales team who's really going to describe and sell your product appropriately to, whoever your demographic is. I think is one of the most important aspects. Even in the retailers, these guys will take your products, but they're not going to push your product unless, you really hook up the bud tenders or really give them something that they can stand behind. And really, I think buy-in is a huge aspect of where the trend's in. If you can get the consumer to buy into your brand and into your products, and then them trust your opinion on what you think is good in the marketplace, that's how you create the trends, is getting that loyalty, getting that buy-in, and then all of a sudden people say, whatever, GoodGood's always putting in that fire. So when I release that new strain, they're already going to have, the motivation to go out and buy it, because they know that, everything else that I put out has been consistent and quality, and most importantly, affordable.
Mm-hmm. Are you worried at all about direct sales, or have you been taking advantage of that in California?
What do you mean direct sales?
Direct to consumer, bypassing the retail market.
No, I think so. One of our biggest end goals is direct to consumer through delivery, and so that's really where we see ourselves expanding the most. Is we are creating a delivery platform where we're going to be delivering direct to consumer straight from our distribution and a couple other distribution hubs that we have across the state. So I think it's a huge aspect. I think the instant needs category, not just in cannabis, but in foods and Postmates and Uber Eats and GoPuffs. These are some of the biggest tech companies in the world, and they're all fall in the instant needs category. And with obviously COVID in the past 2 years, people want to have everything delivered to their doors. Not everyone wants to go out, and now you have different AR and NFT experiences where you can get directly from your phone or computer that really kind of create that engagement with the consumer. So I think it's going to be a huge aspect of the cannabis industry. Only as of, I believe, August of September, you were even allowed to put a cannabis delivery app onto the App Store. They didn't allow it. So now you're going to have, huge rush, go-to-market strategies for a lot of big boys, Ease and Grassdoor and High Times. These are all deliveries that are, rushing to create a platform. And I think, it's going to be, you're going to see a huge increase in sales due to that. And I think it's just going to be, access to more consumers, which, everyone can really use right now. Because, as I mentioned, there's not enough retailers in the state of California. The state has not issued enough retail licenses to sustain the amount of product that's being cultivated in the state. So we desperately need more outlets. And if we can get delivery cars on the road and deliver it straight to the consumer, I think that will help boost sales and help, farmers get their products in the hands of, the consumer, as opposed to, potentially having to even think about, selling it on a wholesale or even on a black market, which a lot of farmers, are struggling to make bank. And, the black market, as everyone knows, is huge still in California in itself. After 2, 3, 4, 5 years of legalization, you're still seeing black market sales overtake legal cannabis sales, which is, to me, just mind-blowing. I still don't understand how it's happening, and how, with the amount of tax revenue that the state or the country is producing, how there's not money being allocated to more funds and more enforcement on the black market community. This is what's really taken down a lot of even the retailers. So I think, there's a lot that can be discussed on that aspect.
Yeah, I recently had a licensed entity in Washington State offer me $1,850 for a pound, which is fairly pricey up here, especially on a black market. For folks that are looking to grow from home, is that a market that you're worried is going to take any market share away from you?
Grow from home?
Yeah, home grow.
If you home grow, you can only, yes and no. I think it'll always be a hobby, and a hobby that a lot of people love and enjoy. To grow and smoke your own weed is great. But I think if you're a consumer, and even if you make your own craft beer at home, you still have that kind of curiosity to see, what's this like? Let me try this, even to compete against yourself sometimes to see, you may think that you have a great product, but unless you're going out there, I have access to all the weed in the world, and, I hate spending money on flower, but I still have such a curiosity to see what other people are putting into the marketplace. So I'm always going and checking out new drops and stopping by retailers to see what the competition's putting out there, and really just trying everything that I can, because, I have that curiosity to learn and see and feel. So I think a lot of avid consumers have that same curiosity.
Do you have any advice for people growing from home on how to cure? I mean, it seems like that's kind of the secret sauce almost, to bring out some of the flavor and taste and funk. What kind of advice do you have on curing?
It's just don't bag it up when it's too wet and then burp it. You have to really open and close those bags, allow fresh oxygen to come in, get the old oxygen to come out, and just step and repeat. That's what I do. And it's a little extra. We have something called cure tubes. They're like big barrels, that we hang in a wine cellar type room, where we have full environmental control in our curing room as well, which is a huge aspect. You want to make sure that you're sitting, not too humid, not too dry. So the product, moisture loss is obviously a huge effect on it, and every gram counts these days. So when when you're wasting time curing, you're technically losing moisture on the product. Technically, you're losing grams. So a lot of farmers take that into consideration when they're curing their product. So that's, it's just everyone really has their own mindset. And, sometimes you can change it, but, at the end of the day, I think curing is probably one of the most important aspects, and the flesh, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Can't do one without the other.
Yeah. Do you think if people are going to be into business integrated agriculture, where you walk in and it helps to reduce some of the CO2 and the need for AC? Also, you might be able to have a wall of herbs or whatever. Are you kind of seeing that trend? Or I'm just curious about the connection between vertically integrated agriculture and business integrated agriculture, where businesses are going to use regular plants within their facilities as well. Do you kind of see any correlation at all, or am I off on a limb?
What do you mean, like other agriculturers using vertical farming?
Yeah, I'm curious if this is going to catch on, because I've been talking about vertical integrated agriculture on my podcast for like 4 years, and I'm curious if this is finally going to be this next stage where we're going to walk into a business and they're going to use a plant wall to reduce their AC, or maybe a restaurant is going to have a plant wall for a herb garden. Do you think that businesses are going to integrate agriculture, in like a bank or anything? Do you kind of see this trend catching on?
I mean, I think vertical farming is, if anything, I think cannabis took this trend from, let's say, like lettuce farmers or other agricultural communities.
Mm-hmm.
Farm to table, it's a huge thing. Everyone wants, their food farm to table these days, especially in California. They want to grow it in gardens, and they want to grow them locally, and they want to, help the community sustain itself. And I think a lot of that has to do with vertical farming is when, you don't need hundreds of acres to grow lettuce or to grow corn. Mm-hmm. And now you can grow lettuce indoors through LED technology. And you go to these lettuce farms that I've personally been to, one's in, I believe, New Jersey, and they source half of Manhattan through a vertical lettuce farm in New Jersey. And they're able to keep costs down. They keep their delivery costs down because they're not shipping products. And the supermarkets and the local, farmers markets are all now getting high quality, fresh products to their marketplace, without having to go through all these deliveries. And that's why, vertical farming is great, because you can utilize efficiencies, but you can also utilize less square footage and have the same output. So you're not only saving on rent, you're saving on, because most farmers were growing this way. Mm-hmm. So now 30,000 square feet, you need 60,000 square feet, as opposed to doing stack on top of stack. I've already had the ceiling height that I'm not utilizing, like in New York City, like almost air rights, So I think it's something that people weren't utilizing because the tech was not available to the community. And now that the technology is available, and more so continuously being invested in, that farmers are now understanding, I didn't have the tech to grow this way, and that's why it wasn't successful. But now, we're pushing the envelope a little further. And like I said, a lot of outside investment are coming from a lot of different tech companies, a lot of different agricultural communities, and they're investing in cannabis, just like during the gold rush. The guy, with the shovel was the one making all the money. These guys are coming in with different softwares, task managements, POS systems, and these guys are getting $1 billion evaluations in the first year or two because they didn't have a specific POS for cannabis. They didn't have a specific accounting for cannabis. They didn't have a specific task management software for cannabis. When you're managing in my specific space, I have 30,000 plants in house at any given time, including clone, veg, moms, and all my flowering rooms. I need to have information on every one of these plants. and how do you do that? You have to have specific cannabis softwares to utilize that. So it's just from all aspects of non-cannabis touching assets to cannabis touching assets to grow lights, environmental feeding controls. It's just so much has really came into the marketplace that, I think everyone is realizing you have to utilize these tools to be successful these days. And that's something that I always believed in, and kind of, as a lot of legacy growers, don't believe, they see everything with their eyes and their feel and their touch. But, at such a large scale commercial agriculture, you can't, get a feel for every plant unless you have sensors. And like you said, different AI, I think will definitely come into the marketplace. If you see a leaf curling, or if you're seeing a little yellowing, they'll catch on to that. So I love it. And I can't wait for someone to come connect and do it. I'm sure someone's already, listening to this and thinking about it if it's not already created. And, I think the more people who can come in and bring other technologies into the industry will only help push cannabis in the right direction. And we need to continue, sharing the knowledge that we've kind of grown. A lot of people like to, keep their knowledge to themselves, but, how are you going to push an industry forward if you're keeping everything you've learned to yourself? Maybe it'll help benefit you, but, there's a bigger picture involved. There's a bigger community involved. There's, besides recreational use, the medical use of cannabis is, I think, the biggest advocate of it all. And, it's been proven over and over again on the medical benefits from ADD or back pains or creams or migraines, and people who cite, Alzheimer's. I think, the list goes on and it still doesn't get the credibility it deserves. And it's still a Schedule 1, and it's still, especially with 280E, farmers can't even survive because they can barely write off any of their business expenses due to that. So, there's always just needs more people advocating and just people talking about it. I think is a big, will go a long way. And that's why I love.
There's a lot of issues with cannabis. I guess it depends on how long you want to keep putting up with it. Do you have a particular time frame? Like, do you have an exit strategy for this, or are you going to just keep doing it until the wheels fall off?
No, I mean, hopefully, I'd say a 5-year plan's in place. Our goal is to expand our footprint in California, as I mentioned, through our vertical model of direct to consumer through delivery and retail, and then to grow our footprint through a multi-state operation, and then hopefully, have big enough infrastructure where you will attract those MSOs to come in and take a look at yourself and see if that's something that they're willing to buy into. And hopefully I can continue being a part of that as that happens, or, we can exit. But, I see myself in the cannabis industry for a while, whether it's in cultivation or other aspects of it. But, cultivation has always been a passion and a hobby of mine, and something that, I love spending time in my grow rooms, just as, much as I have to spend time in accounting and compliance and distribution and operations. So, it's just, it's been an amazing experience. It's, pure joy and passion for me. But, there's a lot of struggles and a lot of uphill battles that you have to kind of just continue fighting against. And, like any industry, there's no secret to success besides hard work and, just grinding.
It is a grind. For any investors or anybody that wants to check out where you're at, what's the website, social media? Where is Yellow Dream Farms at?
So you can look us up at yellowdreamfarm.com. You can look us up on LinkedIn. Our house brand is called GoodGood. That's our direct-to-consumer. Yellow Dream Farm is more of a B2B platform. We offer white labeling services. We offer packaging services. We offer distribution for brands who don't have cultivation licenses and are looking to get into the marketplace. So we're currently white labeling with 2 partners of ours who we package and sell them our products, and they put it under their brands. And then, we have GoodGood, which is our first house brand that we launched, and I founded as well. And that's our, direct to consumer. That's what we sell into retails and deliveries, and something that we've really been gaining good traction behind. And, I hope we continue to gain market share and expand our footprint, and then hopefully develop other brands that will be more targeted to other demographics of people, as opposed to GoodGood, which is more, cannabis connoisseurs. People are a little more, as you said, into the marketing and the hype, and just really are looking for new trendy products. I'm really about building the community where people can come together and discuss, aspects in the industry, whether it is, on the legislation side or just the community and the cultural aspects of it. The whole community and the culture of cannabis has grown so far. And, potheads have gone to having negative connotations to positive connotations to being some of the most successful entrepreneurs in the country. And, it's beautiful to see. And, that's what I'm saying. Just, we got to continue working together, share knowledge, share information, and, come together to push the industry towards the right direction.
All right, we'll put Jeffrey's link, his LinkedIn contact in the description. But I think with that, we're gonna have to roll this one up. So I want to thank my guest, Jeffrey Garber. He is the founder, CEO, Yellow Dream Farms. He's also with GoodGood. Jeffrey, thanks again for being with us on the Talking Hedge.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. I'm Josh Kincaid. This is the Talking Hedge. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't, and I'm out. Don't forget to smash that like button on your way out and check out these other videos that we've got.